The world as we know it has changed forever. We have to unite more than ever. It has never been easier to connect. Social media is the great equalizer. As we continue to learn from each other, it allows us to challenge our beliefs, turn our fears into action. How far can we go? It's up to us. We have to conquer our fears, crush mediocrity, stay motivated, dream big. If your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. In the think tank, we will never settle for anything less than an extraordinary life. Welcome to the think tank, Shavonne. How are you today?
I'm doing good, sir. Thank you for having me, Mr. Martin Spencer.
Man, it's been a pleasure. Since I attended the St.lucia Toastmasters meeting about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I wanted to bring you on and tell the world that the future is bright. Like I said before, most of the times in Toastmasters, everyone that I've seen has not been under 30, and you being under 30 tells me that the future is really, really bright. So without further, just tell us a little bit about Shavonne. I was going to give you a few highlights, but I think I'm going to give you the honor of telling us about Shavonne.
Okay, thank you very much. So, think tank audience, my name is Shavonne Bryan and I'm a Toastmaster. It's one of my passions. For persons who do not know about Toastmasters, it is a worldwide organization which helps persons develop their leadership and communication skills. Presently, I serve as the president of the St.lucia Public Service Toastmasters Club, and I've been a Toastmaster for a little over 2 years, joining in 2018. And ever since, I have been able to work my way up to the advanced communicator goal. I am a little shy of my distinguished Toastmaster award, which I am presently working to achieve. And it's been a wonderful journey. I've found myself engaging in many key meetings. And one of the things I'd like to highlight is that I'm also a youth parliamentarian in our current youth parliament structure here in St. Lucia. I am able to serve as the head of that youth parliament in the capacity of the prime minister in that youth parliament. And it's for a 1 year period where we come to the National House of Parliament and we debate certain issues. The last parliament sitting we had, we debated on the transformation of the education system in St. Lucia by more or less going from the traditional means into a more effective means, including, life skills and so forth. Aside from that, I also have presented many speeches, over 50 presentations to be exact. I have done a host of radio and TV interviews representing my company in the capacity of a service personnel. And graduating from that, I do what you call speech training and speech coaching one-on-one with persons who are looking to improve in that area as well as the leadership. It is indeed a passion of mine and I love to teach. And in all that, I also launch my youth initiative called the Communicate Project, where we seek to empower persons through the teaching of soft skills as well as literature. So far, we have been able to deal with empowering young men. And in the near future, we are looking to empower young women, looking to touch the community in a very tangible way. And basically to just empower persons so that they can speak up and lead when it comes to particular issues.
Wow, that's a mouthful right there. So you're a busy young man. That's great.
Very much so.
That's good. Like I said, the future is bright. So you've been in Toastmasters since 2018,
Yes.
and so how much further you have to go along for your DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster?
Well, at present, I have achieved my advanced communicator gold and my advanced leader bronze. I have successfully coached a club in
Okay,
Grenada,
wonderful.
and I received my coaching certificate
Mhm.
last month. So I'm a successful club coach, and what I am missing to do is my high performance leadership project. The
Wonderful.
good thing about it is that I have undertaken a few high performance leadership projects without going through the criteria. So, based on the initiatives of my group, we have
Mm-hmm.
embarked on webinars and we've had one-on-one meetings and so forth, which can be regarded as a high performance leadership project, but I did not undertake it within the program. So this time I'm doing a conscious
Mm-hmm.
attempt at the high performance leadership. So within the
Man,
next week or so, I should be able to attain that.
wonderful. I remember those times very well when I went through mine several years ago. It is, it is really a crowning achievement. It's a personal joy that when you aspire to be a Toastmaster and then you aspire to be the best. When I started 5 years ago, I started my journey 5 years ago, and like you, I became president of my club within 3 months.
Wow.
Didn't know what I was doing. Someone dropped out and nobody wanted to take the position. I said, I'll do it. Yeah. I mean, I jumped into it, and it's a decision that I've never regretted. So I really commend you for, I mean, such great work. And I know you're going to achieve your DTM. Um, I'm looking at my notes, and you said that social issues. What kind of social issues do you undertake?
In the month of June 2020, commemorating Father's Day,
Mm-hmm.
I felt it necessary to empower men. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a very touchy topic when I first brought it to the forefront because many persons were like, why do we have to empower men? Why are men getting this sense of empowerment, whereas men are not interested in empowerment. Men do not care about these types of forums. And it was very discouraging at first when I brought the idea forth, but I still went through because inwardly I've noticed that there are many avenues for women, young and old, to express themselves. And I also found out that it is within their nature to seek help when it
Right.
comes to their confidence and how they tackle issues. So within the month of June, after careful planning with my team, we launched a webinar series called Empowerment.
Okay.
And it was a five-part series which dealt with five areas. We first dealt with the emotional man. So we had a psychiatrist and a fellow Toastmaster come on board, Dr. Julius Gilead, and he dealt with the psychological aspect of men when it comes to the emotional health, rejection, and other areas. Secondly, we dealt with young fathers. So I spoke with young men who are under 35, and I got two of them to come and share their experience as young fathers, what it was like when they first got the news as to them becoming a father, what has the challenges been along those lines. And it was a
Mm-hmm.
very popular webinar that day, and I got a lot of feedback. Persons are still giving me comments regarding that video,
Good deal.
and it was very enlightening because I've never seen a forum that gives men the opportunity to speak about fathering.
Right.
Thirdly, I had a session called Wingmen, which dealt with mature men encouraging other men to, step up. Because oftentimes our mature men sometimes fall victim to alcoholism, they they do not care. And instead of highlighting the bad, we decided to look at the practical aspect of it where we wanted our men to see that it is okay to tell your brother, hey, you know what, I'm there for you. I can
Right.
encourage you, let's become better men. And we had that one, after which we focused on another segment where we dealt with men and families.
Right.
We touched quite a bit on marriage, but we also dealt with the family aspect. If you are a man and you have one, two, three, four children, then how do you transition from a single life to a family life? And how can you become the ideal family man? And it was a very interesting session. We had over 60 people involved, and there were many questions being asked and so forth. And the last aspect, we focus on the spiritual health of the man. And we had a very well-known bishop, Dr. Emmanuel McLaurin, come in and do that session. He also helped the men to realize that it is okay to go on your knees, it's okay to pray if you need the help and the guidance. He also dealt with the very practical aspect of lust and preventing men from just easily falling into temptation. So the five-part series came together and it really empowered persons. And I got a lot of feedback in person, and persons messaging me directly to applaud the initiative. And that lasted for the month of June and after. So we're looking to go into another series where we empower our young people, and we are also going to try to get some more female facilitators on board to do the women's empowerment aspect of it.
Wow, wow. That's quite a challenge, man. That's quite a challenge.
Indeed.
Where do you get the inspiration to do what you do?
I got the inspiration firstly by assessing a lot of our social programs locally. I did a program with the University of the West Indies, and it was a certificate in NGO management. So I had to focus extensively on our NGOs and our CSOs locally. And in my assessment, I found that there were many organizations which assisted women who were dealing with domestic violence, women who have been rejected, single mothers, married women who somehow are having troubles within their marriage. There are quite a few of them, but one I did not notice was a program dedicated to men.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that I know men experience issues too. Now, it's very touchy to come outside and be pro man, especially when you have a lot of persons out there who have been abused by men, who have basically encountered the short end of the stick when it comes to men. Because how do you go to a young man and say, hey, I'm here to empower you, when his father left him at a very tender age? It's very touchy. And instead of focusing on just making men better men, I decided that I should embark on an initiative which helps men realize that it is okay to look for help.
It's true. I mean, there are lots of times men have that stigma attached to them. Like, for example, men don't cry, men don't have feelings, men are not emotional, and I mean, and that's a far cry. Men are very emotional. You know, we have feelings too, right?
Yes, we do.
But in society doesn't allow men to project. They want that tough macho man, but deep inside, it's I mean, they hurt just as much as anybody else. So it's
Very much so. And one of the things I also noticed, society does give their fair share in putting the pressure on men to be upright and firm and clear at all times. But we have a lot of men who struggle with not just their identity, some men even struggle with their sexuality, they struggle with their self-esteem, and depending on the type of relationships they're involved in, whether it be family or intimate relationships, they get battered down verbally and they do not know how to deal with it in a safe way. So they turn to all these other forums, they become promiscuous, they turn into alcohol, they turn to drugs. And instead of just taking men and say, let me empower you so you cannot go back into alcohol, it is more of an approach that we need to start setting the environment where it's okay for men to come to a forum and say, my brother, I'm having a lot of trouble with my girlfriend. She always tells me I'm lazy and so forth. How do I deal with that? Because every time she speaks, I get annoyed and sometimes I just want to, lash out. I wanted to create a forum where men can openly come together and speak about that. Because oftentimes you would be in a situation of the like, and depending on your circle, some men will just be like, that you quarreling for, or you making this trouble you, or whatever.
Right.
And I don't think it does much justice to the man in terms of his development. And we need a safe space for them to speak about those issues. So that's where I got the inspiration for that initiative.
Great, man. That's, man, for a young man, you've taken on a lot of chores. A lot of chores. Well, if not everybody has the desire, the capacity to want to give back or want to help. And like I always say, the more you give to life, the more life gives back to you. So
Yes.
I mean, I applaud you. And then you said that you were part of you had the youth parliament in St. Lucia also.
Yes, and
What's about that?
every year, annually, we have independence celebrations, and part of our independence celebrations involve having a youth parliament. In the years past, the National Youth Council in St. Lucia would be responsible for coordinating this activity. And they got in touch with the District Youth and Sports Councils, which recommended persons to represent the individual constituencies, 17 in total.
Mm-hmm.
And this year they took a different approach because in previous years we would have debated a topic. I remember Youth Parliament in 2019, the question was, should our main and only community college be transformed into a full-fledged university? And persons debated on that. This year, the approach was different by the National Youth Council. They made an open request to persons who would be interested in representing, and they had close to 100 applicants. We went through an interview process, and then we were shortlisted and contacted and confirmed as the candidates for the representing constituencies. After which we went through a very extensive training process where we had to learn basic law. We also did a training on international integration. We did a public speaking element, and it was very interesting because one of my Toastmaster colleagues was responsible for conducting the public speaking aspect. And when she arrived, she was like, but wait, why is Shavonne there? Shavonne, you should do the session. And it was a joke between the two of us, but we had the public speaking aspect of it. And we had the practical training within the parliament. This year, we debated a bill, and the bill had the question of, should our current education system, which facilitates a child sitting common entrance and transition into a secondary school, that should be changed to what you call the CPEA assessment, which is essentially a CXC certified assessment at the end of primary school. And we debated that. I was the Prime Minister, and the Minister for Education, my colleague, he was the one laying down the bill. So he did the introduction. I was given, everybody was given roughly 15 minutes to present their argument. I was given 30 minutes. I actually spoke for 34 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very interesting because we found out that one of the standing orders in Parliament is that you don't read from your notes. You basically have to do an impromptu presentation, or you already have your research and you just need to present on off the fly. So this is essentially what happened. We were able to go through the entire process. The parliament was successful, and ever since, persons have been asking for a second sitting. But due to the COVID-19, we've been having some trouble to get back into parliament because of these very extensive protocols.
Good. Wonderful, man. I'm telling you, man, you're a really busy young man. That's great, man. But I can tell you enjoy what you do. You have you have a passion for what you do. You have a passion for empowering the youth, for giving back. And I myself, I try to do as much as I can. I gave a speech about a month ago to about 30 Catholic men who had lost their jobs. They were in very tough positions. And my message was to them was, this is the world has changed. And, it's not about just looking for a job. Figure out what else can I do for myself? How can I create a business for myself? besides just a job. So you have an option. So if the job fails, you still have an option, and you could do that job on the side in your free time. It may take a little extra effort on you, but it's incumbent upon you to pivot. I use the word pivot a lot, and
Yes.
because this is tough. Jobs are lost. Jobs not coming back. So you
Yes.
have to figure it out. My favorite term is figure it out. No matter what it is, you have to figure it out. Definitely.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about all your speeches now in Toastmasters. Now that's what I like, because I've given over 400 speeches in Toastmasters. So tell me about most of your speeches. Or how do you derive? How do you make them up?
Okay, well, starting Toastmasters in 2018, I got inducted, and I was very much inspired by the current crop. But at the time of Toastmasters within my club, they came and they did some really powerful presentations. Some persons made up some interesting visuals, vacationing in Venice. Persons were recounting experiences of historical figures like Rosa Parks and Martin Luther, and I was very much inspired. It took me roughly 3 months to attempt my icebreaker. And the standard that I saw, I was wowed by everything. And I attempted my icebreaker, and coming from a background in sales, I have no issue facing an audience because I've worked in sales for about 5 years directly. And I thought I really had it in the bag. I'm like, I could do this, 4 to 6 minutes, that's okay. So I typed up my speech, I sent it to my mentor, and my mentor said, hey, this needs some additional words. This is not 4 to 6 minutes. I'm like, what? So then I went back to the drawing board, sent it to my mentor. My mentor gave me the go ahead, and I attempted my speech. And because I saw many of the senior Toastmasters, some of whom had their DTMs already, doing speeches and, basically expressing themselves with all these gestures and not looking at any notes, I decided to try the same thing for my icebreaker, and it failed miserably. Because the moment I looked from the paper, I saw about 22 persons staring at me like this,
I know.
waiting to hear what I have to say. And then I was like,
the reality set in. The reality set in. I'm actually speaking, and I don't have any notes. Well, that's
like, oh boy.
well, that's the whole concept of Toastmasters. Let me give you a joke about myself.
Yes.
I always speak on serious matters, but then 2 years ago I entered the humorous speech contest, and I thought I was just the funniest guy, man. I thought I was so funny, but it was a different speech.
Yes.
But I bombed, and I said never again. Not bomb. It wasn't. I mean, I thought I won. Put it that way, okay? We always think we won, right?
Yes.
But then I was not funny because I'm not a comedian, But but that's the learning process. Yes. I take on any role, any speech, any topic. And right now, whenever I go to a toast, when I go to a Toastmaster, I'm president of my club right now at this moment. It's my second term because nobody wanted to take it on. So I said, okay, I'm going to give back to Toastmasters and lead the club again so that so the club doesn't go extinct.
Yes.
So that's what Toastmasters. So Toastmasters always step up. We step up to the plate. We give back. And we help. And one of the things I do, I mentor like about 3 or 4 people right now because they have that fear. I have one young lady who was paid for her Toastmasters dues for 2 terms, and she's never showed up. She showed up only once. Fear, just fear. I said, I'll coach you. It's a safe place to fail. Toastmasters is a safe place to fail. It's not about failure. That's what you do. You want to be a better public speaker. You got to talk. How can you get better if you don't talk? And she's just petrified. So I'm in the process of helping her craft her icebreaker. I said, you know what an icebreaker is? You talk about you. You. Create a story. Speeches is about stories. She's still petrified, So it's a work in progress,
Yes.
Definitely. Shavonne, your new initiative. Tell me about that again. You have that new initiative that you call what?
Okay, well, It's actually still in the planning stages, and what it is another webinar series that is going to focus on effective communication.
Mhm.
That is basically out of a desire to give back because over the years I have acquired extensive knowledge on public speaking.
Right.
I've also had the privilege of sharing my knowledge with at least three secondary schools, two businesses, my church, and with many persons one on one. Just earlier this week, I was sharing with a group called the Ladies Lounge right here in St. Lucia, and it was in excess of about 20 ladies or so. I felt like an intruder because I was the only guy in the room, but they called me because they recognized that I'm very much passionate about effective communication, and it was part of their mandate to nurture that skill within their group. So it just happened within the right timing because I'm planning this webinar series, which will deal on effective communication. The effective communication is going to be broken down into a few parts. One of the main parts would be the impromptu speaking element of it. What I've noticed is even within our Toastmasters meeting, persons come and we have some Toastmasters who are still a bit shy when it comes to table topics.
Right.
So be able to conjure the courage to do a prepared speech. But when it comes to table topics, they may have some challenges. And I've noticed that within my club and other clubs as well. And with persons out there in the everyday media, we have local news stations interviewing persons, and they just like, they give 15 seconds and that's it.
Mhm.
Realizing that, I also decided to include the impromptu speaking aspect of it because persons love that.
Right.
The session with the ladies, one person came and gave a testimonial how she was, after the session occurred on the Wednesday, the Thursday she was in town and there was this guy passing with a camera and he asked, does she want an interview? And she said before the session, she wouldn't have done it. But then after I spoke on speaking off the cuff, she said, then why not? And she went ahead and she spoke for about 2 minutes.
Wow.
And she amazed herself that, she was able to do that within herself, knowing that a day earlier she wasn't able to do that. So I know that the knowledge that I have through all my resource material from my public speaking schools, because I'm part of a digital public speaking academy. I also have another Speak to Live. There's another initiative that I'm a part of. I'm also a journalism student, so I am doing a diploma in journalism, and I also have a communications course doing at the same time. So in my free time when I'm not coaching, I'm also learning. And with all my learning, I decide to share that knowledge, just for free. It's not a paid webinar series, but just for free to just empower persons to join the movement of Toastmasters and also to believe in yourself because it means a lot to me as a young man growing up that I was not always this eager to speak. I had my insecurities. I always thought that maybe I would say stuff and it wouldn't make sense. Because growing up, I would say certain things and people would be like, boy, that ain't making no sense. That not making sense. So it nurtured the fear to really speak out publicly. But ever since I found Toastmasters, I was able to come outside my shell and give my contributions where people would come back and say, wow. And I'm like, well, what I said was not all that great, but they were surprised.
Right.
So I'm starting to now believe in myself and giving back that sense of encouragement and empowerment to persons through this webinar.
That's wonderful, man. That is so great. Oh man, you've given me so much value today. You honestly, like I said, the future is bright.
Yes,
How many
sir.
in your club? What's the average age in your Toastmasters club?
Well, the average age, I would say, I have not really averaged the ages, but I would say we have very healthy balance of young persons.
Right.
I think the youngest person within our club may be around 22 or 23.
Wow, yeah. Because when I attended your meeting,
Mhm.
so you had a few DTMs, you had several young people there, maybe in their 20s and 30s,
Yes.
which is quite a contrast from what I see in the US over here. Our average age, I would say, is probably 45, 50.
Oh,
You
wow.
got, yeah. I mean, in my
Yeah.
club right now, there's nobody in my club right now under 30. Nobody.
Wow.
Absolutely nobody. And I only had one young man about a few months ago. He was a boxer, and I might still get him in. He wanted to join, and he was only 19, 20. So
Oh,
I was amazed.
nice.
Yeah. If we can empower our youth to be able to speak more, I wish I had the ability to speak when I was younger. My confidence level would have been higher.
Hmm.
I've never been one for lack of confidence. I've been an athlete. I've always been a good athlete. So my confidence, you gotta be confident to be a good athlete. You can't say, well, I don't know. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna run. I'm gonna win that 100 meters. I'm gonna be the first. So I've always been that kid. But if I had the ability to speak from a younger age, my confidence would be high. So I always tell kids, speak from a young age. Get up and speak. Just express yourself. We in Toastmasters we have what we call the what's that youth is a youth club that we have.
The Gavel Club.
The Gavel Club, yes, the Gavel Club. And I was part of one about a year ago. And it's amazing how these kids they started up from 9 years old. And
Wow.
the first speech they gave, all their heads bent down, and then after the second or third speech, they enjoyed it because they were talking about because we made it because speaking is about stories. If you tell kids about stories, you tell a story. Okay,
Yes.
tell a story about your vacation. Funny, we quiz them about. Most of them had sisters. It says,
Hmm.
"Do you get along with your sister? What did you?" And so you motivate and talk about something that they do because kids always tease each other. If
Yeah.
it's a brother, he has a sister. The sister tries to control. She said, but she tries to control me. She always tries to make me eat. She always, So we give them exciting things to talk about, but it's about stories. And if we can
Mhm.
empower our youth to tell stories, tell good stories, I always try to avail myself to help the youth all the time, all the time.
Yes, our club is a very young club, I must say. Our executive has, I think all our executive members are below 40.
Right.
We have a few, yeah, I should be, I think, the youngest person on the executive
Wonderful.
right now.
Wonderful.
And yeah, we have a very young club.
Hmm.
A lot of our older members come in for support. They
Right.
also mingle with us, so we have a very interactive environment. It's very friendly and open. And one of the things that was very surprising is that the media, as of recent, have sought a lot of feedback from Toastmasters in St. Lucia. And whenever they're directed to me, persons are surprised, like,
Hmm.
we have a young president, you know.
Good. Wonderful.
Yeah, it definitely has been very encouraging to network on behalf of my organization because we have had to meet with the Rotary in St. Lucia and do certain projects with them, do certain meetings with them. And
Hmm.
one of my first projects that was last year, I did a session on impromptu speaking with the Rotary Club of Grizzly, and that was well received in, in its form. And this year we look to do even more. We have an activity coming up this weekend where the two clubs come together and we go on a nice nature trail.
Hmm.
So there's quite a bit happening, and with our young club, you can always imagine that our meetings are exciting.
Oh yeah.
We never leave there feeling dull. Even after the meetings, we have meetings where we stay back and chit chat. You
Right.
know, it's really bringing us some joy. Persons look forward to our Tuesday meetings and they're like, "Oh, I needed that."
Good. Good. That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Wonderful. Now, my last question to you is: let me ask you, with the advent of COVID in St. Lucia, how has it affected the youth, not only in Toastmasters but overall? What do you see? Has it really made a difference in our youth?
Okay, well, since COVID came, COVID has had some very interesting outcomes, both positive and negative.
Mm.
And just to deal with the negative, which has been experienced in other territories, there's been a massive loss of jobs, a lack of certain recreational activities. So there's no carnival, no Jumi Creole, less
Mm-hmm.
parties, and all these. But COVID really has brought a new idea when it comes to being innovative. Because I think before COVID, our local people, we've been cultured in a certain way that we don't really endeavor for much change. And since COVID came, we've seen a lot of new businesses form, persons specializing in delivery services. You have a lot of e-services. A lot of school teachers have transitioned into giving online classes. Some persons have even opened schools to facilitate students during the week, because one of the major changes would have been in our education system. A lot of schools are opening to students on alternate days. So
Right.
with 5 day week, a child may go to school either 2 or 3 days. And you can imagine if the week has a holiday, that child might only go to school 1 day in that week. And you've seen a lot of teachers come out, open these learning institutions where they take your child in for the balance of the week. It has also helped, I guess, with saving, because a lot of the persons who would have budgeted for carnival and all these activities
Right,
save
right, right.
this year by not investing in such. And like I say, it's just a new wave of innovation. Persons just looking for ways to offer their services remotely, and lots of Zoom sessions, lots of meetings happening in the virtual environment. And you could see that there's a lot of expedition in the services that are offered. So whereas you would have had to leave your home to deal with certain bills by standing on a line, you can pay online.
Right.
And that came through COVID. A lot of those were in the pipeline, but COVID really expedited these processes. And young people generally, they look forward to these one-on-one social activities. So ever since the government has given the go-ahead to open, the nightclubs, the sports bars and stuff. So we are not, how would I say, we're not deprived of such recreational activities, but it really has streamlined a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
innovation within young people.
That's great. Well, I'm glad to see life is kind of getting back to normal a little bit.
Yes,
That's good. That's good because we've been. That was a devastating blow since March.
I'm telling you.
I talked to a friend of mine in St. Lucia, and he was telling me, my heart cringed for the little people, the people who in the fish market, in the
Mhm.
in the market itself, selling the vegetables and the fruits. They can even go out and do that. So I mean, and it was just devastating. It was just devastating.
And it's very interesting that you say that, because just before COVID struck, we had a lecture by the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Bank.
Mm,
And he really spoke to that particular point that you raised. And he said, with the digitization of our economy, it must be so in a way that if the fisherman goes out and he makes a catch, that by the time he gets to shore, that fish has to be sold, because he would have had the equipment to upload it onto social media. Persons would have seen the price and somebody would have already paid for it. So that lecture happened sometime in February. And
no, that's innovation. That is innovation. Wow.
mhm. And
I don't know if you remember.
in March, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember. I remember as a boy, because I grew up in the CDC, right? And
Mhm.
there's this guy who used to walk around the neighborhood at night, and he would just he had this loud voice, and he'd say in French, in patois, there are children and people. I have the best fish in town. I have doad, bonito, shark. He would talk about all the fish that he had, and he'd walk in the neighborhood and he'd sell out.
Wow.
He would pull it like in a trolley, I don't know if that doesn't happen anymore, but it was like almost social media in the old days.
But it still happens because
Brilliant.
the men walk to the city with the wide wooden carts,
Right,
and
yes.
some basically have their vans, their pickups, and they still do it. It's
That's good.
just as how you left
Can
it.
you imagine taking that step to social media and
Yes.
having a call and just texting it out and say, I'm at the corner of by MNC and whatever store it is, and then they come
Yeah.
there and in no time it's gone. That's amazing.
And it's interesting too because I have a friend of mine who lives in the rural district of Shosel, and he actually started an online business which specializes in just that. His business is called Shop the Caribbean, and
Mhm.
you basically go in there and you can actually buy your produce online. You put it in a cart
Wow.
and you pay for it like any other e-commerce platform, and
Mhm.
within a day you get it delivered to your doorstep.
Wow, innovation. That's what I'm talking about. So COVID, even here in the States, COVID, I mean, I've had to pivot a lot of different ways.
Yes.
Right before COVID, I was speaking professionally all over Florida. And in no time, in one day, 9 engagements were canceled. In one day, everything was canceled.
Wow.
So what I had to do was pivot. You got to think online now. So I've changed my website. Just, you just have to innovate. You got to pivot. You can't sit down,
Yes.
you cannot lay down and say, well, you know what, man, I don't know what to do. No, you have to pivot. Because it has happened to everybody, not just you and me, just the whole world has changed. And
Yes.
the world is never going back to where it was before. So Shavonne, an eye opener. You've given me a fresh perspective on young people in the islands. That
Yes.
not because you're not in the U.S. that you lack for anything. I'm so proud to see your Toastmasters is going great. I'm going to try to come back and sit in on another meeting again sometime soon. But if there's anything I can do for you, I'm only a phone call away. I'm only a WhatsApp away, right? WhatsApp away.
Yes.
There you go, WhatsApp away. But thank you so much for being the thing. Thank you for some. Is there any before I go? Is there anything you want the world to know? Any of your initiatives you want any to know? Are you putting it out there in the world yet, or you still it's in the embryonic stage?
It's still in its embryonic stages, but I can always encourage persons to like my page on Facebook. It's called
Okay.
the Communicate Project.
Mm-hmm.
So you just go onto Facebook and you type the Communicate Project and you just give us a like.
The
Every
communicate
like is
project.
very encouraging,
Let me make sure
right? So
the communicate project.
yes, the Communicate Project. I think I supposed to have my
Mm-hmm.
background so I can show persons what my
Right.
logo looks like.
Okay. Wonderful. There. Yeah. Yeah. The communicate project. That is wonderful.
All right, so that's us right here.
Oh,
This
great.
lovely,
Wonderful.
lovely logo, the Communicate Project.
Ah, man, you are a treat, man. You're a fine young man. I appreciate you coming on in the think tank, and anything that I can do for you, over here in the States, please feel free to reach out to me. And
No problem.
one of these days, I'm gonna do a prepared speech for you guys one of these days, and show you my
Oh, trust me, I would love that.
and show you my skills. How about that? Yeah,
Yes,
definitely,
we can
definitely.
always make it a date.
Wonderful. We'll do that. So once again, thanks for being in the think tank. And like I tell everybody, don't just be a regular person in this world. Be an extraordinary person, and that's what you are. You're an extraordinary person. So thanks again, and we'll be talking soon.
All right, thank you for having me, Martin.
Oh, my pleasure, man. You take care of yourself, okay?
You too. All
All
right.
right. Bye now.